the writing on the wall. It's for reason, not for malice, that we watch them fall. The amazing atheist. The amazing atheist. Have you seen it? The stupidity of the ones around you. Can you feel it? The need to rise up from the pit of destitute. The amazing atheist. The amazing atheist. Forge a unity, the time is coming to annihilate the ignorant, peddling scum, breathing anger, exhale wisdom, suffocate the indifference. No more complacency. The amazing atheist. The amazing atheist.
Oh, oh. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what the fuck that was. But it was something. That's a way to begin a stream, you know? It's one way you can do it. I was watching a thing about a scientist who studies dreams, and he said the worst thing about being a dream scientist is that people will often tell you about their dreams, and I guess that it's kind of like a thing where people don't like to be told about dreams. People don't like when someone tells them about their dream. Like, dude, I had this crazy dream. It's like, I don't really get that, because to me, I'd rather have someone tell me about their dream than some bullshit they actually did in the real world. Because at least a dream has the potential to be interesting, you know? Someone tells me a story about their day-to-day life. It's like, man, I went to the fucking Starbucks and they were out of fucking espresso shots or whatever the fuck. Like, who cares? But if, you know, someone's telling about their crazy dream, man, I had a dream that fucking Satan raped me in the ass. It's like, whoa, that's intriguing. Tell me more. How large was his cock? Was it veiny? You know? It's way more interesting. But I guess most people don't agree with me on that. Most people don't like, when other people talk to them about their dreams. Anyway, here's a dream I had last night. So I was at a mall, right? In this fucking shopping mall. But there was some dissatisfaction brewing in the shopping mall, you know? Like, me and some other people, we were upset. I don't know exactly why. I don't remember the cause for our unrest, but we got pissed. We're like, fuck this mall. We're going to fucking fuck shit up. And we started, going to the stores, looting them, smashing shit up a little bit, like, fuck this store. I went to this bookstore in the mall, this, like, Walden Books type of bookstore. I threw a bunch of fucking books off the shelves. I moved where the shelves were, like, arranged like a barricade out of shelves and stuff. And so then the people who ran the mall decided to invest in these, like, high-tech, automated, like, security tanks with these, like, automatic fucking machine gun turrets on top, right? And so every time they saw anyone breaking the rules of the mall, they would just gun them down until they left, And so they ended up driving me and all the other, unrest kind of people out of the mall. They either killed us or drove us off, So I at that point, I start going around the periphery of the mall, for some reason, all of a sudden I was in a blanket, I no longer had clothes. I just had a blanket wrapped around me, which maybe I think a little bit of the real world was creeping in at that point because, obviously in real life, I was in bed and I had a blanket wrapped around me. But I started having one in the dream as well, walking around the edge of the mall, trying to find a way back in that doesn't have a tank, because I want to come back to the mall. I want to see if we can still make this change happen. But finally, I'm able to sneak my way back in the mall, and I see that everything has just been restored to normal. Everything's back to normal. All the stores have been, restored back to pristine working condition. All of the damage that me and my fellow hooligans inflicted upon the mall has been undone. And now the security tanks with the automated machine gun turrets still patrol the mall. But, people now just view that as part of their everyday existence, Whereas it would have been once a horrifying fucking sight to see, now people have just acclimated to it and everything's just peachy keen. It's just fine. That now the mall, enforces its rules via tank with automatic machine gun turret, and everyone in the mall just walks around with the attitude of like, hey, if you don't want to get gunned down by the machine gun just obey the rules of the mall. So, my dreams are not usually so blatantly obvious with their symbolism, but in this instance, it was. Because it's been about a month since the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin. And, in the immediate aftermath of that event, there was a huge rallying cry in America for, defund the police, end systemic racism, that kind of stuff. That was, we're going to fucking do it. And this time it ain't going away, Fuck that. This time we ain't fucking stopping until something gets done. God damn it. So I thought I'd review exactly what has been done since then. So Syrup Lady and Rice Guy are gone. Yep, that's right. Aunt Jemima, we sent her packing. Yeah, she's history. She's toast. She's pancakes. Uncle Ben, he's gone. No more Uncle Ben. Fuck that. He's racist caricature. Gone. Fuck you. Fuck you, Uncle Ben. Go to hell and die. Gone with the Wind now has a disclaimer when you watch it on HBO Max. It might still be down. I don't know. But it's coming back with a disclaimer. So now at the beginning of Gone with the Wind, there's going to be a historian that explains to you why the movie's, a relic of its time and all this. It's an important film, but, there's a lot of problematic elements. So we got that done. Yay. All right. So a little pat on the back for that there. Black cartoon characters are going to have black voice actors now. I guess there was a black character on the show Big Mouth. Never seen it. I don't know. But it was voiced by a white Jewish woman. And now it's going to be voiced by a black person. So thank God for that. Racism over, blah, blah, blah. Cleveland Brown, who's been voiced by a white dude for like 20 years, is now going to be voiced by a black actor. All of the Simpsons has announced that all of its characters of color are going to be, voiced by people of appropriate ethnicities and stuff. Which is kind of weird considering the Simpsons are fucking all yellow. I don't know. There's no really white people in the Simpsons, are there? I guess that the yellow is just a stand-in for white, so whatever. I wonder if this is going to cause problems when, like, I mean, there's got to be some black voice actors out there that are voicing white characters currently, right? Like, is that going to be a problem for them? Is some fucking anti-SJW type gonna fucking start spotlighting, hey, what about this black actor that voices this white character? Shouldn't we change that too? Drum up a fucking bunch of fucking, 500,000 views for that shit. Give me some money. Okay, cool. Cash some checks on that. That sounds good. A bunch of TV shows that did like some blackface jokes in the past are now cutting those episodes. I guess The Office did some. I'm sure, I without even knowing the context of why blackface jokes are in The Office, I'm pretty sure that the joke is that whatever character is doing blackface is either in the wrong or being made to look ridiculous in some way, shape, or form. But still, they gotta go. That's another accomplishment. Fairly unrelated to any of this, but I guess this has been something I've seen being talked about is all the Twitch streamers that are in hot water with Me Too, so that's going on. Jenna Marbles self-cancellation. I guess I haven't watched it because I don't give a flying fuck, but I guess Jenna Marbles came out and did a video like, yo, guys, I've said some really fucked up shit. I've done some really fucked up shit on my YouTube channel here in the past that just doesn't fucking jive with the times no more. And I'm a shitty person and I'm gonna fucking just go away for a while. Maybe forever, who knows? I'm gonna wander the earth for a bit. Then Shane Dawson tried to do the same shit, but people weren't having it from him. It was like, nah, not you, fuck you. Her apology was very accepted. Like, people were like, all right, cool. Shane Dawson's apology, not accepted at all. Just like, fuck you, bitch. You self-serving motherfucker. Never be second. Never be second, okay? If he'd done it first, maybe people were like, all right, fair enough, you can go. But no, he did it second, so no fucking pass for you. I didn't watch his apology either because, once again, just could not find it in myself to give a fuck whatsoever. But the next day, I log on to Twitter and I see he's trending fucking for the 12 millionth time because I guess the two of the Smith family, like the Will Smith's fucking wife or ex-wife, are they still married? I don't know. Who cares? Jada Smith and Jaden Smith both went after Shane Dawson for something he did 9 years ago in regards to Willow Smith, who is Jada's daughter and Jaden's sister. So I have a little article about that, actually. Let's take a look at that. Oh, by the way, as you can see right down there, we got the jiggling ass thing right there. That's every time everybody who super chats or Streamlabs, that shit will come in, and that will be read at the end. I always read all of the Streamlabs and super chats at the end of the stream, just so we don't disrupt the momentum of the stream. Okay, so that being said, I'll do a couple more reminders of that as we go. But let's take a look at this article with Shane Dawson here. Let's change cameras, change views. Okay, so I'm being covered up by the ass right now. But anyway, who cares? Video of Shane Dawson objectifying a young Willow Smith resurfaces. Curious language, I think, the resurfaces thing, because it's like, it was never submerged, was it? Like, it was publicly released at the time. It wasn't like this was like a hidden thing. This was released for the fucking public, right? Right. Okay. So he did this thing. It says, warning, the below video contains graphic sexual content. It actually doesn't. It just shows him pantomiming, jerking off, like his dick ain't out or anything like that. But the joke is that he's jerking off to Willow Smith, who at this time had a fucking hit song about whipping her hair back and forth and shit, right? So, pretty reasonably, in my opinion, obviously, if this was, your daughter or whatever, or your sister, you're gonna fucking see this and be absolutely pissed. So I don't fucking hold it against Jada Pinkett Smith or Jaden at all for fucking looking at this and being like, fuck this piece of shit. So Jada says to Shane Dawson, I'm done with the excuses. Basically, apology not accepted, bitch. Jaden says, Shane Dawson, I'm disgusted by you. You sexualizing an 11-year-old girl who happens to be my sister, exclamations out the ass, is the furthest thing from funny and not okay in the slightest bit. Jaden went on to say, this man was doing blackface on the regular. As the youth, we need to support creators who support us and our morals. This is not okay. I wasn't aware that your generation had like some ubiquitous moral standard, but I guess we're claiming it does now. Interesting. So let me talk about this very briefly, although this is a bit of a digression. In fact, it's a total digression, but I feel... Now, let me make my feelings about Shane Dawson clear. I think Shane Dawson sucks, and I've never liked him. And the reason I don't like him is because I think he's a total fucking phony. And the reason I think he's a total phony is because he just panders to whatever he thinks his audience wants. And I think that's actually part of what's fucking got him in trouble at this point. Because it's like, I view Shane Dawson almost like a dog, right? Like he's a fucking... just a stupid fucking dog that does tricks. Sit down, boy. Shake hand. Speak. Roof, roof, roof. That's Shane Dawson in my mind. Now, maybe I'm wrong because I haven't, like I said, I don't watch his fucking garbage, but that's kind of like my view of him. So if I'm right about that impression of Shane Dawson, then basically... his audience over the course of the year, over the course of all the years of his career, basically taught him the trick of tell the offensive joke, boy, tell the offensive joke. And then he does. And they're, good boy, have a treat, have a treat. Here's a subscription. Here's millions of subscriptions, boy. Oh, yes, you're such a good, another edgy joke. Good boy, good boy. Oh, look at him. He's so politically incorrect. What a good boy. And then all of a sudden, the edgy joke is bad. And he shows up one day. He does the edgy joke. And you're like, no, bad dog, bad. That is a bad dog. It's like, And then not only that, but it's like, you're not only a bad dog for doing the edgy joke now that we decided we don't like it, but you're a bad dog for all the times you did the edgy joke. It's like, but you gave me treats. It's like, too bad. You should have realized I'd eventually change my fickle fucking mind. You know what I mean? There's my take. Take it for what it's worth. So that's what's happened since the death of George Floyd. That's all that's gone on. That's all that's captured the public imagination. Here's some of the stuff that hasn't happened. So the push to defund the police seems to have completely stalled out after some initial success in Minneapolis and California. Minneapolis, of course, totally abolishing their police department, replacing it with something else. I still have yet to hear the specific details of what exactly that's going to be. California not abolishing its police department, but cutting funding for its police department. No sort of meaningful nationwide reform has yet occurred. So far, Trump has signed a fairly toothless piece of legislation, not even a piece of legislation, an executive order that basically just says like, hey, police, it's, I'm not telling you what to do or anything, but, if you guys could ease it up on them chokeholds a little bit, that'd be great. Unless your lives are in danger, which is up to your discretion, yeah, just a strong recommendation from me, Donald Trump, to maybe not use so many chokeholds, because that was really the heart of the issue. So that's been done, I guess. Or I guess that I don't know. Should that be in the category of things that have been done? I think it belongs in the category of things that haven't been done, because that's nothing. So there hasn't been any sort of real national reform that's happened. We haven't seen anything that's been done on the front of like the systemic racism issues that so many people have brought up. There's mountains of statistics out there that demonstrate various ways in which the system has been rigged and is still rigged, and we haven't done anything to even begin to address any of that. What we have seen, though, is the dialogue being moved away from all of the big ideas, like the systemic change that we need, defund the police, all this stuff. Like there was this big conversation going on a few weeks ago about all of the big, huge, sweeping changes that needed to happen in our society. And now what's the conversation about? It's about, now Apu's going to be voiced by an Indian voice actor. And Dr. Hibbert's going to be voiced by a black voice actor. And, Cleveland Brown is going to be voiced by a black voice actor. And we got rid of the syrup lady. And we got rid of the rice guy. And Gone with the Wind is going to have a disclaimer. It's like, I don't know. Is that it? Like, is that what was being fought for? Is that what this was all about? I'm not saying that, like, there's not, we can argue, I guess, about the merits of any of that, but that's clearly not what needs to be done. That's clearly not what any of this was about. I don't think anyone out there protesting the death of George Floyd was out there like, we demand that the voice actor for Cleveland Brown be an actual black man. Like, did anyone demand that? Was that the rallying cry of anyone anywhere? I don't think it was. So I think that all of these important systemic sort of issues that were being discussed have been sort of redirected. The energy from that has been redirected into these like performative acts of wokeness that are centered around popular culture, because it doesn't cost the system anything to give in on that. Like, we changed the syrup. So? Like, who suffers? Whose life is improved? Whose life is made worse? Whose life even fucking changes? So instead of being Aunt Jemima syrup, it's fucking, Aunt Tabitha syrup or fucking whatever. It's like, syrup plus. I don't know what the fuck. It becomes some other fucking bullshit. Uncle Ben's rice becomes fucking Mountain Grove rice or whatever the fucking bullshit. No one's life changes. Nothing's different. Nothing. Cleveland Brown has a different voice actor. Who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck? I don't. But of course, I don't know. I'm a white face, so maybe I don't get to fucking comment on this or whatever, but I am anyway. So you decide, I guess. Ultimately, this is just more ammo for this dumb fucking culture war that, in my opinion, this is the kind of shit that ultimately led to the rise of Donald Trump, because this is just, it's bad. It's just retarded shit. Like, you go to fucking so many people and be like, look what they done. They took away your syrup, and they took away your Cleveland Brown voice actor, and they took away, the episode of The Office that you liked because the joke is offensive, and they took away your Jenna Marbles YouTube channel. Look at all the stuff they took from you, these damn woke people, man. You gotta fight back. You gotta vote for Trump. Like, why is this what the political capital gained by, the marches after the death of George? Why is it being spent on this? Like, if you're gonna fucking piss off the racists of America, piss them off to the tune of some actual fucking systemic change, not some meaningless pop culture minutia that you'd have to be literally a fucking mental invalid to give a shit about. I don't know. That's just where I'm at. Maybe I'm fucking insane. Maybe I just don't know. Maybe I don't know where the pulse is. Maybe I just can't fucking find the damn thing. But that's not the main thing I want to talk about here today. I have something, a much larger topic I'd like to delve into. And I'd like to, before I delve into it, remind folks that STREAMLABS open. Super Chats open. They will be read at the conclusion of the stream. All of them. Every single one. Sometimes there's exceptions, but for the most part, they're all read. A lot of times, like, maybe I'll miss one, or maybe one will just be, like, fucking flat out stupid to the point where I'm not even going to fucking give it the time of day, but, 99.9% are addressed. So, I want to talk to you guys about the latest lefty infighting bullshit. I guess it's not bullshit. I don't mean to besmirch it right out of the gate by calling it bullshit. But the latest reason that lefties are at each other's fucking throats, because it's not like this ain't the first time. A few months back I was talking to you guys about the burn your bus thing. But now there's a new reason to not get along in town, right? So, the argument right now is, can the populist left and the populist right get along? More importantly than can they get along is, can they work together meaningfully to enact some sort of change, right? So, this seems to center around two basic sort of hinge points. The main one is it centers around criticism of Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty. I might be pronouncing that dude's name totally wrong. Maybe he could be the new voice of Apu, by the way, Just saying. Was that offensive? I don't know. So they host a show together called Rising, which is hosted by The Hill, which is a newspaper, I guess, owned by a good friend of Donald J. Trump. But their coverage, it's not universally like pro-Trumpy coverage, but it's not universally anti-Trump coverage or anything. It seems like it's kind of in that center-y space for the most part. But whatever. I don't know too much about it. Maybe it's more right-wing than I think or whatever. But the premise of the show is that Crystal is a progressive and Cigar is a conservative. So it's like a modern day version of Hannity and Combs, only it's not, quite as lopsided as Hannity and Combs, because Hannity and Combs was like, here's this very square-jawed kind of man's man sort of, I am a conservative, and then here's this fucking, this Weasley fucking liberal guy who, basically has no good arguments and is just there to be fucking straw man. Like Alan Combs fucking sucked, all right? Sean Hannity also, of course, sucks, but he's a much better representative of his point of view than Alan Combs is of his. So it was, but it's Fox News. So they chose to do it that way. But so this is, the Rising is not quite the same, because there's, Crystal and Cigar are both, reasonably intelligent human beings able to get through a fucking sentence. The center, it centers partially around them. because their thing is, you know, I'm right wing, she's left wing, but we're both populists, right? So on the populism, like they call themselves like, she's part of the new left and he's part of the new right. And it's like, we have this show to explore, like, what do the new ideas of left and right, like, what do they agree on? What do they disagree on? How can they, you know, how do they compare and contrast to one another, you know? So secondarily, this argument seems to center around how willing left-wingers should be to engage with or platform Tucker Carlson, who occasionally puts forth some populist messaging. Now, obviously, you know, to whatever extent Tucker Carlson is a populist, he is a right-wing populist. So there's many voices involved in this discussion, and you probably know from my thumbnail who they are. But the first voice we're going to talk about is the voice of Nathan J. Robinson, who wrote an article on what day was it? June 18th. Called "Isn't Right-Wing Populism Just Fascism?" So this is the article that, as far as I can tell, seemed to kick off this debate here. And this is ostensibly sort of a review of the book of Crystal Ball and Cigar and Genty. They wrote a book called the 2020 Guide to, or Populist Guide to, like, you know, politics or the election or whatever. I'm fucking butchering the title, but that's basically what it's about. So, what's said in this article? Now, the article itself, I could sit here and try to read the whole fucking thing, but blah, 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 blah. You see what I'm saying. So let's go ahead and just kind of do a quick capsule review of what the fuck it says, okay? Okay. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, his article is a refutation to the Cigar and Crystal's book, which is called The Populist Guide to 2020. That's what it's called. So, the thesis of that book, by the way, is basically like, hey, right-wing populism and left-wing populism ain't so different, you know? Maybe we should look at alliance, you know? We should have an alliance on a few issues, right? So that's basically their book. And it seems this book has actually fostered some goodwill. Like, if you look in the Amazon, you know, page of the book, and you see their little editorial review, you'll see that it's, you know, the book has been praised by Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard, who I kind of think of as the new centrists, honestly. If there's a new left and a new right, I think of Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard as the new center. It's also been praised by Nina Turner, who was, you know, instrumental in the Bernie Sanders campaign, Kyle Kulinski, who I'm sure most of you guys are at least passingly familiar with. It's also been praised by Tucker Carlson, who I think we all know is pretty firmly on the fucking right. So, I mean, you could look at that and say, hey, there's people way on the left praising this book. There's people way on the right praising this book. Maybe there's something to this book. Maybe there really is this enormous sort of common ground that we can all get together on and be like, okay, yeah, this is fucking good. You know, we actually agree on some issues here. Maybe, you know, we don't agree on everything, obviously, but maybe there's a path forward here where we can get some stuff done together. And I think that's an inherently appealing message. So what does Nathan J. Robinson have against it, huh? Okay, let's find out. So the first point he makes is that right-wing populists, you know, pay lip service to the working class, but ultimately do not really advance their interests in any way, shape, or form. So he goes on to say that basically, like, the standard bearers of right-wing populism around the globe are people like, you know, Trump and Bolsonaro and Duterte, people who are actually very authoritarian. who use, things like racism, xenophobia, transphobia, homophobia, etc., drug use in the case of Duterte, as, wedge issues to kind of do a divide and conquer strategy of the population. Bolsonaro, I think, once said that if he saw two gay people kissing on the street, he would like attack them or whatever. So these guys are like real virulent fucking, we hate, whatever. So then there's, of course, the Tucker Carlson thing that is brought up by Nathan in this argument. He says that people like Tucker Carlson, who use populist rhetoric when it suits them, are provably frauds because they look at something like the recent protests and they describe it as like, this is a gang of thugs that's destroying our cities and stealing everything that isn't bolted down, and that they're against the very concept of law enforcement, not because of something like systemic violence, on the part of police against like the black community and, in my opinion, the broader community in general. They don't think that that's the reason why law enforcement's being, opposed. They think that it's being opposed so that, these thugs who are rioting can just loot and riot even more, with no one to stop them, basically. So I'm going to quote Nathan J. Robinson here from his article. He says, Carlson has no interest in actually trying to comprehend the arguments being made by police and prison abolitionists, which are about reducing terror. They don't want a country where people are free to be as violent as they like. They want a country where violence is actually prevented effectively through nonviolent methods rather than just dealt with after the fact through the counterproductive method of caging millions of people. Now, I think it's an important point to note here that you can disagree with what, left-wingers advocate here. You can disagree with the whole, like, I think we need to handle more of this stuff through, like, social work, and I think that if we address some of the underlying factors that cause criminality, then that would be a more effective way to deal with crime than simply, having our own gang of, like, armed thugs who patrol the street and crack heads and lock people in fucking, jails. You can disagree with that. You can say that's like a namby-pamby, wussy-ass approach or whatever. But what you can't do is straw man it as something entirely different. As just say like, no, that's like, just ignore the fact that that's the position and just argue against a made-up position of like, they want to abolish the police so they can do more crime, which is what Tucker Carlson did. So that's Nathan's article. Those are the main arguments he puts forth. So then on the 19th, we have Vosh do a response to that. So he kind of expands on some of the arguments that Nathan J. Robinson made in his video. So he reiterates that Tucker Carlson is a bigot and a fraud who has openly admitted that he serves moneyed interests, and therefore any sort of pro-worker messaging on his show is, not something that's genuine. It's just something that's designed to, appeal to his audience. But there's nothing actually behind it, because at the end of the day, he doesn't support policies that will actually advance the interest of those workers. He just wants to pander to them. So Vosh also expresses concern that the class solidarity championed by people like my friend Paul Zigo, actually, is going to create a state of affairs wherein the left abandons progressive social causes in favor of this class reductionist viewpoint that holds that only the labor movement matters, and that any sort of like racial concerns or gender-based, like any sort of like id poll kind of concerns are just going to be totally pushed to the wayside and ignored, and it's just going to be made to be all about class, and the left wing is just going to be a totally like, we're going to be like only economically concerned, and any sort of like social concerns are just going to be like, whatever, we're not even fucking with that. We're an economic left party or movement. And, I think that probably the most important point, though, that Vosh makes, and he made it to me when we had our conversation on my previous stream that you can go check out, towards the end of my last stream. It's also something that he said in his, second or third response to a Crystal Ball video. He said that it's not enough to simply agree on problems. You have to agree on solutions. Because it's possible for two people to agree that a problem exists, but then have radically different solutions to it. So then it's like you can't really work together if that's the case, right? Like if, we have a guy going around the neighborhood stabbing people, or let's say people are out there walking their dogs and this guy jumps out of the bushes and stabs their fucking dog or whatever. And, it's like, okay, we all agree this guy's a problem. What are we going to do? And half the people are like, well, I think we need to fucking catch this guy and get him the fuck out of here. And then the other half of the people are like, well, I think we should just ban dogs. Because if there's no dogs to walk, there's no dogs for him to stab, right? Or, whatever. So, if you have these two radically different approaches to the problem, just because you agree on the problem doesn't necessarily mean that you have meaningful common ground. So that's I think that's the most important point that he made. So then on the 19th, also on the 19th, Crystal and Sager released their own argument, their own refutation, rather, against the article that Nathan J. Robinson wrote. And I'm sorry for all this backstory, but I really want you guys to comprehend the full thread of this argument as far as I can fucking trace it. So, what does Crystal have to say? Crystal makes the arguments to Nathan J. Robinson. She says, hey, look, you cannot just lump all right-wing populists in with unpopular figures like Bolsonaro or Mussolini or Hitler. She doesn't really ever explain why she doesn't feel like that's justified. I think it's just kind of an argument from incredulity, but whatever. That's her first argument. Her second argument is Crystal says that her show is about highlighting both agreements and disagreements between the new left and the new right, or if you prefer, the populist left and the populist right. And she makes the argument, look, me and Cigar here, we disagree on a bunch of shit. We've had some fucking real slobber knocker fucking debates here on this show about stuff like Trump's threat to use the military to quell protests. Crystal Ball was vehemently just said, this is fucking, this is the road to fascism. This is fucking horrible. This is bad. This is wrong. Cigars actually supported it, I guess, and they clashed on that issue. And, they even fucking said, she's like, I feel like your position on this is just beyond the pale fucking crazy. And maybe he felt the same way about her. But, she kind of highlighted that as look, if you're saying that, I'm just giving, right-wing populism a pass or something, I'm not. I'm holding its feet to the fire. I'm doing the due diligence of keeping, of making sure it's accountable. Crystal also emphasizes that Bernie Sanders, who, you many people on the left admire, himself worked with people like Ron Paul when, they had an issue in common, or John McCain, when they had an issue in common. Bernie Sanders would put, his normally what would be his antipathy towards those people aside, and got the work done that needed to be done. He got with them on the specific issues that they agreed on, and he got something done. So, Crystal and Cigar, they kind of continue to talk after Crystal has said her piece, and they say that comparisons between America's populist right and Hitler or something is ridiculous. Once again, they never really kind of delve too far into why. I'm not saying it's not ridiculous, by the way. I'm not taking, at this point in the video, I'm not taking a position one way or the other on this. I'm just saying that if you're going to say it's ridiculous, even if you feel like it's self-evident that it's ridiculous, you still have to fucking put forth some kind of fucking argument. And they didn't do that, really. So then they frame their show as being kind of the antidote to what they view as too many people, stuck in these political echo chambers. They're like, look, there's all these right-wingers out there in America that do nothing but watch like Fox News. They do nothing but watch right-wing commentators all the time. And that's all they do. And they never get exposed to another fucking point of view. And by the same token, there are plenty of people on the left, or plenty of people who are, either leftists or liberals or whatever the fuck, who are just in their own little bubbles, and they never get to hear another point of view. And they make the argument like, hey, our show, we have two different people on two different sides of the ideological aisle putting forth two different positions, and therefore you're getting a more fucking full picture of what the fuck is going on here. Right? Right. So that's basically what she says. Okay? Okay. So then I'm not going to bother necessarily putting it up on screen, I guess. But Nathan then writes another. I guess I'll put it up on screen for a second. Nathan writes another sort of thing. He responds to Crystal and them. He says, debating the right versus collaborating with them, okay? So he's drawing a distinction here. So he saw Crystal's response to him, and he's like, okay, so that's what you've got to say back to me, so here's what I got to say back to you. And I know, it's getting fucking convoluted as shit. Is everyone staying with, does everyone feel like they know where the fuck we are here? Is everyone, let me just check the chat here for a second. Is everyone following this so far? Is everybody following this? I know it's going to take a minute for the chat to catch up, but is this you guys are getting everything that's gone on so far, right? I see a guy like the left is trash. Okay, great argument, buddy. Good one. You really nailed it. Who is Nathan and why are we reading this? Nathan is the person who kickstarted this entire argument. This is boring. Got it. Yes. Abandon hope. No. Hell no. Yes. Yes. I think so. No. Yes. 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 All right. I'm seeing more yeses than no's. So I feel like of the 2,365 people watching, at least a decent chunk are still following what the fuck is going on here. And by the way, if it's boring, I'm pretty sure other people are streaming right now. So just go check that out. I don't know what to tell you. All right. So Nathan comes back at Crystal Ball. And she, I'm just going to read an excerpt from his shit. So he wrote another article debating the right versus collaborating with them. So the crux of his article, and I'm piecing together two different sections here that are separated by quite a few paragraphs, which I guess you could accuse that of some dishonesty on my part or whatever. But they actually fit together. Thematically, it all fucking clicks. There's nothing in those intervening paragraphs that makes this deceptive on my part. So I'm just going to read it. It's going to be a big chunk of text, but I think it's important. So what I objected to about Bell and Engetti's book is not that it contains disagreements between right and left. Actually, the book is almost all about the things they agree on. But it presents left-wing populism as if it is simply a polite disagreement away from, it presents right-wing populism as if it is simply a polite disagreement away from left-wing populism. Yet it doesn't actually define clearly what right-wing populism is. As I said previously, who are the right populists? What do they actually believe? Bell and Engetti cite taxes on the rich as an example of a place that left and right overlap. Well, the first thing our right-wing populist president did when he got into power is give the rich an enormous tax cut. Engetti cites Missouri Senator Josh Hawley as one of the supposedly pro-worker Republicans. Well, Hawley opposed increasing his state's minimum wage to just $12 by 2023 and opposed getting rid of right-to-work legislation. Ball repeatedly cites Democrats' support for American imperialist aggression as an example of why we should shun the Democrats and gravitate towards the right. I think that's kind of that's a little bit deceptive on his part. But when I went on Rising, America's destructive foreign policy was the first thing I clashed with Engetti over, and Donald Trump assassinates foreign officials and drone bombs civilians. The left has nothing in common with the populist right. They say workers, we say workers, and that's about it. And if we don't recognize the size of the chasm that separates us, we are not going to oppose forcefully enough the right's most destructive actions. So that's his fucking counter. There's more, of course, but that's, I think, the crux of the matter. So then, and now we're going to fucking get Kyle Kulinski involved in this shit. Then Kyle chimes in, because, of course, this wasn't confusing enough as of yet. We needed more voices. We needed more people commenting on this stuff, you know, because I just don't think we had enough, right? So on June 22nd, Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk weighed in with his video, Crystal and Sager Called Out by Lefty Magazine. So the argument doesn't end with Kyle's video, and in fact, I could have made this so much more complicated than it already has been presented here. Like, there are so many voices that have chimed in on this to one extent or another, but I wanted to focus on like some of the bigger voices involved. But like Glenn Greenwald got involved in this, like he did a whole show about it. So this is like a big fucking deal. A bunch of Twitter and YouTube lefties have weighed in. Hell, on my last stream, when I was talking about the class reductionist stuff, that was in large part in response to the beginnings of this debate. Kyle is the last voice we're going to look at, for the purposes of this video before I weigh in. So, Kyle lays out a definition in this video of populism as, and I'm going to quote him directly here, a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. That's what he defines it as. By the way, I would still love to host a debate between Kyle Kulinski and Vosh. I think that Vosh makes an argument about right-wing populism that's, I think, in direct kind of response to what Kyle said here, that, in 2016, basically, this sort of populist rhetoric really took the form of just anti-immigration rhetoric. And by the way, if you want to see more on that, I did a video a while back, not too long ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a little more, I don't know, called the anti-immigration video. It's about 40 minutes long. It's about 20 minutes if you watch it at double speed, just saying. And it's kind of an interesting video that gets into some of this stuff as well. Anyway, so Kyle says that he agrees with Nathan that Trump and Bolsonaro are frauds as far as being populists goes. He agrees that Tucker is a fraud. But he does highlight that Tucker being he highlights that Tucker was anti-outsourcing. In a segment, he outlines, he showcases that Tucker agreed with Bernie Sanders and AOC on limiting the amount of interest that banks can charge. So he does offer up some of the populist takes on the part of Tucker Carlson that maybe lefties might look at and say, oh, okay, maybe that's not so bad on that. So Kyle then actually attacks Josh Hawley, a senator from Mississippi, who has been pushed as a right-wing populist. Kyle Kulinski says that Josh Hawley is a fraud. He points out that Hawley is a fraud because he supported the balanced budget amendment, which guts the social safety net. He attacked the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau as unconstitutional, which is, an institution that protects Americans from being ripped off by fucking big companies. So, it's kind of hard to say you're a populist if you're going to attack that. The guy, Josh Hawley, is anti-union. He supported the 2017 tax cuts for the rich. And Kyle Kulinski didn't point it out, but you might remember from Nathan J. Robinson's article that Hawley also voted against raising the minimum wage in his state to $12 an hour by 2023. So that's not the fucking track record of a goddamn populist, okay? Kyle defends the right-wing populists as being real, though. He says, maybe all these guys are frauds. Maybe Trump is a fraud. Maybe guys like Hawley are frauds. Maybe Tucker Carlson's a fraud. In fact, he doesn't say maybe about it. He says emphatically, Trump is a fraud, Howley's a fraud, Carlson's a fraud. But he says, maybe these guys are all frauds, but that doesn't mean there's not real right-wing populists in this country. He says an example would be someone who is like economically left-leaning, who's pro-union and stuff like that, but on certain issues that the left wing likes, like affirmative action, immigration, abortion, that kind of stuff. This this hypothetical person is very right wing. So basically, economically to the left, socially to the right. That's the kind of person that Kyle Kulinski's talking about when he's talking about a right-wing populist. So Kyle says that Nathan, and I guess by proxy, people like Vosh are smearing such people as fascists when they are not. Kyle feels that writing these people off instead of working with them on the economic issues that we agree on is foolish, that it is unnecessarily burning a bridge that you could easily cross together. Like, hey, you and I might not agree on, gay rights or abortion rights or whatever, but we do agree on, strengthening unions, or we do agree on raising the minimum wage, or we do agree on Medicare for all, or whatever. So let's work together on that. So the last bit of Kyle's video, I think I should just probably show you. And I'm going to want you guys to keep this clip in your memory banks, okay? So let's just take a quick look at this. I'm going to go ahead and just vanish off the screen for a second so that you guys can just enjoy. I'm gonna have to find the right minute marker on this, though, so give me 1 second. I believe that the time index is 1856. Wish I would have just already had it on there. Okay, 1856. This is the last little bit.
He doubles down. I have regretfully come to the conclusion that the Hill, owned by one of Trump's close persons...
Oops, sorry. You guys probably don't want to watch it in double speed. Give me 1 second. All right, now we're good.
Show, we agree where we agree, and we disagree where we disagree. That's what we do. Nathan says this. He doubles down. I have regretfully come to the conclusion that the Hill, owned by one of Trump's close personal friends, puts on Rising mainly for the purpose of trying to trick leftists into softening on Trump and see nationalist racists as preferable to moderate Democrats. What? That is absurd. That absolutely is not what they're doing. It's honestly laughable. Crystal herself was just saying, when Trump was threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, she was saying the same thing I was saying, which is like, oh my God, I might have to vote for Biden because this is way too far. See, what Nathan did there is he didn't like the response from Crystal, and so he resorted to, now I'm going to attack their motives. And so now it's a nefarious show, and the underlying goal is to like disengage the left and have the left see, racist right-wingers as preferable to lefties. First of all, no. Second of all, why couldn't the dynamic equally be the exact opposite? That, Sauger's presence on the show is really to get right-wingers to have more left-wing views, and it provides a gateway into socialism. See, that's the thing that these guys never acknowledge, never talk about, and it drives me crazy. There's all this talk about a gateway. Oh, it's a gateway to the far right. That's what this is serving as, gateway to the far right. If there's a gateway into something, you also understand there's a gateway out, correct? Correct? So if somebody's willing to say, hey, we agree that outsourcing jobs is bad. Oh, look, they're getting along on the issue. Let me see what else this person has to say who's on the left, while I, as a right-winger, watch the show. Why can't she deconvert people as much as Sauger can convert people to right-wing beliefs? See, that you're not allowed to entertain. The pipeline in the gateway only works to go to the right. The pipeline in the gateway never goes left, in their minds. Even though, by the way, it freaking does. It does. When you're intellectually honest enough to say we agree where we agree, you know what happens? A lot of people listen to you, and they'll keep listening to you, and then over time you can change their mind.
Okay, dokie artichoke. So, bloop. At long last. And by the way, I saw someone in the chat saying, like, imagine donating to someone who doesn't even read his donations. I don't know how many fucking times it has to be explained, but Streamlabs and Super Chats will be read at the fucking end, you dumb fuck. Okay? Okay? Okay. Excuse me. All right, with all that being said, now that everybody's caught up and knows what the fuck is going on, it's time for me to actually get into my opinion. Uh-oh. What does TJ think? Whose side is he gonna take? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? By the way, get them fucking donos coming in. Get them coming in. What the fuck? I haven't seen one come in a while now. I got more people in here than I usually do, and I'm not seeing shit. Get that. Come on. I'm trying to grift here. Help a grifter out. Anyway. All right, so I thought it'd be interesting to start with fear. Oh, yes. That most potent of elements, fear. All right. I don't know what the fuck that was. Sorry. So, I think that there is a fear here. Thank you, by the way. Thanks, Cunny Cat. Keep it coming, y'all. Keep the love flowing. All right, so I think there's a surface fear on the part of people like Vosh and Robinson that they express pretty clearly when they're talking about this. I think that their fear on the surface level is that when the left works with right-wing populists, they are enabling and platforming fascist, ideology. That's the stated fear. That's the out there in the open kind of fear. Now, there's a deeper fear, though. I think there's a deeper and a purer fear. And I'm not saying that either of those guys, hide this fear or they never speak of it, but it's maybe just a little bit deeper down. I think the deeper fear they have is they're worried about America, or the left in America, rather, is going to take a page out of the playbook of Denmark's Social Democratic Party. Now, for those of you who don't know, Social Democrat parties all throughout Europe have been in decline for something like 20 years now. Roundabouts there. Obviously, it varies from country to country and stuff like that. But for the most part, these Social Democrat parties and political movements have been declining. Throughout Europe. And right-wing political parties have been ascendant. Now, I don't know if that doesn't hold 100% across the board or something like that, but by and large, we've seen a surge in right-wing populist sort of movements and rhetoric and parties throughout Europe. And we've seen a, retraction or whatever, or not retraction, maybe contraction of left-wing political movements and left-wing parties. But in Denmark, the Social Democratic Party won a pretty big, decisive victory recently. Or, maybe 2 or 3 years back, something like that. And it was because they tacked hard right on the issue of immigration and the issue of Islam. Now, so basically, instead of doing the typical, lefty sort of politics and talking the typical lefty talking points on those issues, they decided to try mixing a little bit of right-wing populism in with their economic leftism. And the result was they won. So I think that there's a fear in the American left. And by the way, my video, my video, the illegal immigration video, I believe it's called, kind of addresses this directly, talks a lot about what happened in Denmark and what needs to happen in America. And it's kind of a fun video because when you start watching it, like when you first start watching it, you think I'm making a very right-wing argument. But by the end, you realize I've actually made a fairly left-wing argument. Maybe not the most left-wing argument possible, but, you know. So this would be a form of, I guess, what Vosh calls the Nazbol vortex. Now, I don't really fucking understand very well what a Nazbol is. There's all these fucking terms that float around, and I just kind of look at them and go like, that probably means something, but eh. But as far as I can tell, what it means is, you know, someone who's basically the kind of person that Kyle Kalinske was talking about. Someone who's, you know, on the left economically, but then far right on social issues. So let's talk about the fear of people like Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball. Let's talk about their surface fear. The surface fear is that the left is going to become too blinded by ideological and moral purity, and they're going to ignore opportunities to advance their agenda because they're just unwilling stubbornly to work with people who they disagree with on certain things. Even if they find areas of commonality and agreement, they're just going to fucking plant their feet in the fucking mud, cross their arms, and be like, no, I ain't working with that person because I don't like them. They're bad. So, well, but you agree on this issue. No, don't care. Don't want to work with them. Just hate them. Boo. So they think it's like going to be like this very stubborn, you know, mentality of like, I refuse to fucking work with a right-winger on anything at any time. Even if we agree on something, I just fucking flat out refuse. So that's their surface level fear that they've made known. Their deeper fear, I think, is that I think the deeper fear of someone like a Kyle Kalinske or a Crystal Ball is they fear that maybe the Nathan J. Robinsons and Voshes of the world are correct, and that there isn't actually any sort of meaningful, common, ground for the populist left and populist right to get together on. You know, I think they fear that, like, maybe that's just a fucking illusion. The moment you go to fucking cash the check vanishes from your fucking hands. So I think there's some pretty damning evidence, I think, in Kyle's own video against his position. Kyle says that the populist left needs to work with the populist right, yet he pretty much admits in that video that every person that the populist right has ever put into power has been a fraud. I mean, like, you can only blame you can only say, like, well, they got tricked so many times, like, at a certain point it becomes like there's an element of collusion to this. Like, not only that, like, so, Trump, he went out there and, well, he's a fake though. Trump's a fake. He used populism to rise up, but he was a fake. Well, I mean, let's remember, a lot of the populism he used was anti-immigration rhetoric. He basically, instead of actually coming up with real solutions for the working class, just taught them that they can blame all of their problems on immigration and, vilified immigrants and shit. And I don't feel like Trump's really been deceptive on that. Like, he certainly has cracked down on the border. He did exactly what he said he would do there. He's trying to build his stupid wall. I don't know how much of it's been built. Not very much. Trump's incompetent. What you gonna do? But he's definitely made some fucking effort. So I don't know. It seems like in the way that Trump was ever populist, it seems like he was genuinely populist. Maybe it's just that, but if you're going to say Trump's a fraud, like, okay, you say Trump's a fraud, okay, Bolsonaro's a fraud, Duterte's a fraud, you say Josh Hawley is a fraud, like Kyle specifically says Josh Hawley is a fucking fraud. You know what? He's saying Josh Hawley's a fraud to defend Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty, but Cigar and fucking Crystal were defending Josh Hawley from accusations that he was a fake populist just a month ago. Crystal and Cigar dissect. The left says Josh Hawley is a fake populist. You want to know what Crystal's fucking position was on that? Crystal's position is, that's ridiculous. Of course he's a real populist. By the way, in that video, do you imagine that she at any point addresses any of the things that Kyle Kulinski had to say against Josh Hawley? She doesn't. She doesn't, and Cigar doesn't. They don't mention any of that. Kyle Kulinski said that Hawley's a fraud because he supported the balanced budget amendment. They don't mention that. At least not, they don't mention that in the first 3 minutes and 44 seconds of the video. As far as I know, they don't mention the stuff about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They don't mention the stuff about him being anti-union. They don't mention him supporting the tax cuts for the rich. They don't support, they don't fucking talk about his vote to lower the, his vote against raising the minimum wage. They don't talk about any of that. As far as I can tell, and I didn't watch the whole video, so maybe I'm fucking wrong on this, and I'll just fucking get, someone can slam dunk me on this point. But as far as I can tell from what I've seen of that video right there, the only point that they address is some people are calling him not a true populist because he hangs out with people who aren't populists. And they're like, oh, that's ridiculous. Of course he's a true populist. So even if I'm wrong and they do address that other stuff, the fact of the matter is Kyle Kulinski says Josh Hawley's not a real populist. Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty say he is. Kyle Kulinski says that Tucker Carlson is not a real populist. Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty say he is. Not only do they say he is, but Cigar used to work for Tucker Carlson, and they both retweet him often, and both him and both Crystal Ball and Cigar use Tucker Carlson to push their book. In fact, you can see right here if you go to this page here on their Amazon page, you look at the editorial reviews here, you can see there is a Tucker Carlson quote right there on the page. Tucker Carlson actually talked about this book on his show, I believe. Tucker Carlson says, the striking thing about revolutionary moments is that almost nobody understands them as they're happening. Cigar and Jetty and Crystal Ball do. They know exactly what's going on in our country right now, and they can explain it with near perfect clarity. This is a tremendous and important book. And Kyle Kulinski, down here at the bottom, says Crystal and Cigar are the indispensable new media stars. They're raw truth tellers, beholden to nobody and nothing but their own conscience. They marry the populist left and populist right in a perfect balance of outsider wisdom. They're the future of politics, and this book demonstrates that perfectly. So maybe that's all true. I don't know. But here's something that I know for sure. Kyle Kulinski says Tucker Carlson is a fraud. Tucker Carlson is not a real populist. Okay? So let's think about what that all means. Let's just fucking distill all that down. The clip of Kyle Kulinski that I showed earlier, you remember that? The little clip I showed? Kyle in that clip doesn't really address the argument, which is that, Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty defend anyone who calls themselves a populist. They'll defend anybody who calls themselves a populist. Anybody who has even a modicum of credibility as far as the populist label goes, they will defend it, even if there are mountains of evidence to the contrary, as there are in the case of Josh Hawley. So let's just think about that. So if they're willing to defend anyone who calls themselves a populist to the point where they're willing to defend someone that Kyle openly admits is a fraud, then, how does that not lead one watching their show with the like if they're going to say, hey, here's our book, here's our show. The premise of the show is that the new left and the new right, the populist left and the populist right, we have so much in common. And in fact, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are both spring from this populist movement, right? If you're going to say that both those guys are fucking resultant from the populist movement, then doesn't it kind of go without saying that, if what really unites us more than anything is populism versus establishment, you know, and left versus right is not as important as populist versus establishment, and you frame Trump as being from the populist camp, even if, you know, Crystal Ball does say on her show that Trump's a fake populist, then doesn't that kind of lead at least some who are watching the show who may be on the left to think to themselves, hey, maybe Trump is a more rational choice than Joe Biden, right? So that kind of, I think that's the logic being applied by Nathan J. Robinson that Kyle was attacking earlier. I think that's where he's coming from on that. So Crystal Ball has been super fucking clear on Twitter, and maybe she's backed down. I know that she's had some major disagreements with Trump over his handling of the protests, but Crystal Ball has been pretty goddamn crystal clear on Twitter that she is not gonna fucking vote for Biden because he's not pure enough. He's not good enough. He's the Democratic establishment, and the establishment is the fucking enemy. She's a populist. He's establishment. She can't fucking support him. But, you know, Cigar, I have not seen the equivalent from him. I haven't seen him on Twitter going like, I can't support Trump. He's not a true populist. He's a, you know, he may say he's a populist, but he's as establishment as they come, and therefore I cannot support him. I haven't seen that equivalent from him. Now, maybe it's out there. I didn't scour the fucker's entire Twitter. But it seems to me like if you got a fucking show that frames itself as a pro-populist, above all else show, that frames Trump as the result of populism and frames Biden as the establishment, where the left-wing host is way more critical of the Democratic establishment than the right-wing host is critical of the Republican establishment, I think that it's not that hard to see at that point why someone would look at that show and look at those facts and say to themselves, maybe this show's kind of pushing Trump. Now, as for the point that Kyle made about there being right-wing populist people in everyday life, I think that's true enough. The question of can the left work with those people, maybe, but I'm kind of dubious about it. Simply because it seems to me like when you look at Trump's approval ratings within the Republican Party, which I think are like 95%, something like that, some crazy number, it kind of shows me that, for all Trump's big populist rhetoric, the people who support him, they haven't abandoned him as it has become clear that that was all a fraud. They haven't abandoned him as it has become clear that that was all just fake. That was all just something he said to drum up votes. They haven't said like, oh, no, we don't, he's a fake populist. We were more motivated by populism than anything else when we voted for Trump. They haven't said that. They continue to support him. And they support him because, they agree with him on social issues, right? Because they've decided that, when it comes to their economic populism, sure, that's something they might believe in, but at the end of the day, they value their social conservatism more than they value their economic populism. And I think that the facts bear that out to the point where we seriously have to ask, is there any sort of coalition that can be built here? I'm pretty dubious that there is. So Bernie Sanders, and here's the fucking, I think this is the argument that you can't fucking beat this. As far as what I just said, like, here's the fucking proof in the pudding to me. Bernie Sanders was basically economic populism personified. If economic populism was a fucking person, that person's name would have been Bernard fucking Sanders. Did we see all of the people who supported Trump who realized, like, wait a minute, he's not a real populist? Did we see them jump ship and go over to Bernie Sanders? I mean, yeah, we saw some do that. I admit I heard of a few. But did we see any sort of mass exodus of like, we reject Trump, he's not a real populist, now we're going to fucking vote Bernie Sanders because he's a real populist? Did we see that at all? Yeah, a little. But did we see a mass exodus? Did we see like a fucking big giant like swath of people leaving fake populist Trump to go join authentic populist Bernie Sanders, even though maybe they disagree with him on some social issues? No, we didn't see that, because as I just said, they value those social issues more. Or they're so stupid that they really still believe Trump's a fucking economic populist, despite a mountain of evidence to the contrary. Maybe they're listening to people like fucking Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty, who can look at a guy like Josh Hawley and still see a fucking economic populist, despite mountains of evidence to the contrary. So I do agree that Vosh should not call right-wing populism fascism. I mean, we all know that Vosh is pretty fast and loose with like fascist, Nazi, fascist. So I mean, here's why. If he's wrong about it, it just alienates people unnecessarily. But even if he's right about it, let's say he's fucking absolutely correct. All these right-wing fucking populists, fascists in disguise. I think most of them are probably too stupid to realize it, so don't help them out. Don't help them realize they're fascists, because then all they're going to do is be like, whoa, I guess I am. Fascism's great. Now, instead of being a useful idiot for fascism, I will simply just be an outright proponent of it. Thank you for showing me the way. So, fuck that. I think Vosh is also wrong when he says that he doesn't think that there's enough people on the left. Like, he makes the argument, I don't know if I fucking went over it earlier, but he makes the argument at one point in one of his videos that I watched on this subject that he doesn't think that there's enough people who are, like white people who are economically left, but socially right. He doesn't feel like that's a big enough block of people to bother trying to court them. I think that there definitely are. I mean, you look at like a 2019 Pew poll of conservatives found that 30%, not just of conservatives, but it found that 30% of conservatives favored a $15 an hour minimum wage, and 43% of Republican or Republican-leaning people did. That's a $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, there's even greater support for like lower numbers. Like if you say $12 an hour, the number of supporters goes up. If you just say like we support a general raise in the minimum wage, the number's higher. But we're talking about a $15 an hour minimum wage, which is what that was the Bernie Sanders agenda. You got 43% of Republican and Republican-leaning people who agree with that. You got 30% of people who identify as conservative who agree with that. The New York Times reported that 57% of Republicans favored Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax proposal, which is basically like, hey, wealthy people should be taxed not just on the income they earn, but they should be taxed on their existent wealth. 57% of fucking Republicans are like, yeah, let's do it. Because there's no love for the rich on their side either. There's no love for the, like, one thing the left and right agree on is fuck the elites. And, you know, both sides say raise their taxes. Now, I don't know what the Republicans want those tax dollars to go to. Probably the war machine. I don't know. But the left wants them to go to expanding the social safety net. Although maybe I'm wrong about that, because you look at a lot of polls on universal health care, and this number kind of bounces around everywhere, and there's different ways the question's asked. But if you talk about universal health care, there's a ton of fucking polls that show that Republicans and conservatives, a lot of them, like anywhere between like a third and half, support some form of government health care. Now, usually it's with the caveat that they also want private insurance to continue to exist. But, you know, as far as, I mean, most of them, I mean, anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2, once again, so I can't say most of them, but at least half of them, or at least, I should say at least a third of them, and up to half of them agree with some form of universal health care, agree that, you know, all people should be covered. So basically you got up to half of people in the Republican Party who would agree generally more with someone like Joe Biden on the issue of health care than they would someone like Trump. Now, of course, a Bernie Sanders supporter like me thinks that Joe Biden's plan is a fucking joke, but, you know, I think the Republican plans are bigger jokes. So, where do I fucking fall on all this? I think it's kind of obvious, but, you know, I think I'm more on the side that there's not much common ground to work on. I think as far as left-wing populists and right-wing populists getting together, now, let me make something clear. When it comes to the specific instance of Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty and their show, do I think that their show is this like inherently harmful institution or something? Not really. I don't think it's really necessarily a bad thing. I don't really get with I'm not with the platforming shit very much. I don't think it's harmful to have a show that there's a left winger and there's a right winger and they both talk and they both fucking kind of like meet in the middle on some stuff. Like, I don't think that discourse is somehow inherently harmful. But I do think the idea that there's this huge array of issues that we can all work together on. Like, I haven't really seen good evidence of that. Getting along with one another on a fucking, TV show or a YouTube show or whatever, that's one thing. I can get along with a fucking right-winger easy. I got plenty of right-wingers in my family that I can have a fucking perfectly amicable goddamn conversation with. That doesn't mean shit. When it comes down to the nitty-gritty, when it comes down to like, hey, what do we actually agree on in terms of what should be done in this country? There's not much. I'm not saying there's nothing, but there's not fucking much. And that's where I'm at on that. So, with that all being said, let's move on to our next fucking segment, where I'm going to look at one of my old videos, and I'm going to see how much of it I still stand by to this day. This is a video called 20 Answers for Black People. And this could get messy. I haven't watched this beforehand. I don't know what the fuck I say. I don't know how fucking much trouble I'm going to fucking get in. But let's fucking do it. You know what I mean? Let's do it.
Back in August of 2015, BuzzFeed made a video called 24 Questions Black People Have for White People. It's every bit as dumb as you'd expect, but it's actually not the video we're going to look at today. Today we're going to look at a video called 20 Questions Black People Have for White People that BuzzFeed didn't ask. So, we're about to...
I'm so scared right now.
watch a video about questions so stupid even BuzzFeed wouldn't ask them.
Be honest. You hate black people, don't you?
Please don't say yes.
I don't hate black people
Thank God. Let's just leave it there. Don't fucking keep talking. Just keep it there.
any more than I hate any other race of people. As
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I am a misanthropist.
far as I'm concerned, the entire human race has been spinning its wheels in the mud for a long time.
I'm actually a little different on that these days. I have more hope than I used to. I have more hope for humanity. I have more belief in the potential of this species. A lot of people talk about 2020 as though it's like, this is the worst year. This year is awful. This is the year of hell and all this. I'm like, a lot of ways, this is a pretty good fucking year, man. Like, we're fucking, like, we've meaningfully talked about some things and stuff. Granted, we've kind of slid back into talking about pop culture bullshit recently, but hopefully we're not done actually talking about fucking systemic issues and things humanity needs to do going forward and like climate, change and shit. Is TJ pulling a gentleman? No, I'm not leaving anywhere. Here's the things I'll never do. I will never leave, and I will never apologize. I might say like, oh shit, I was wrong about something. Oh shit, I should have said this a different way or whatever the fuck. But, I'm not going to, I'm never going to fucking be like, I'm so sorry for what I said. I know I hurt a lot of people when I said what I said, but now I'm just looking, please forgive me. I don't give a fuck about forgiveness. I don't give a fuck about, whatever. So, you'll never hear me fucking do that, I guess.
But let's say I did hate black people. Would you really want to know? Or would you just browbeat me for being a racist? I'll be honest with you, if I hate anything about black culture, it's that it's such...
Shh. Calm down, TJ. Calm down. Take it down a notch, bucko. Times they are a-changin'. It ain't 2016 no more.
a victim culture, almost a victim cult. Our Lady of perpetual victimization. Every unfairness that exists in your lives is the fault of white people or society stacked against you. You might as well just tattoo "it's because I'm black, isn't it?" to your fucking foreheads.
There you go. So I would like to expand on that. I do believe that there is a cult of victimization that exists but not just in the black culture. I see it pretty much across the spectrum. I think it was wrong of me to only apply that to black people because really there's so many victim cultures in this country. There's people who feel like there's white people who think they're victimized for being white. There's conservatives who think they're victimized for being conservative. There's Christians who think they're victimized for being Christians. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you're going to fucking do this victimization thing, I think black people actually have a lot more statistical evidence on the side of their victimization than most groups who make those claims. And in fact, most of the groups who make those claims are pretty fucking inherently ridiculous. The fucking idea of like a white person being a victim in this country because they're taking down the Confederate statues or whatever, or like they're destroying the history, or a Christian being a victim because they're not allowed to discriminate against gay people or something. Like, that's fucking ludicrous. But black people, while I'm not really a big fan of the idea of I'm a victim, so give me stuff, I think that there's at least something there. And we've talked about it on this channel before. Some of these statistics that exist that kind of show the inequalities that continue to persist to this day and the fucking disparities that continue to persist to this day. So I think that was probably a bit cavalier on my part, and I probably should have at least clarified what I was talking about, but probably should have just not said it at all. But whatever, I did.
White people, do you know what gentrification is doing to black neighborhoods? Do you have any idea?
Yeah.
Not really. I really don't. So I already heard myself say yeah, but I really don't know what the fuck it's doing to black neighborhoods. I've never been to a gentrified neighborhood, so I'm not really exactly sure. But let's see.
It's making them...
Now, this one I remember got me in some trouble even at the fucking time, so...
look nicer and fixing the economic slumps created by the high...
Way to puss out. How'd I puss out? Do you have any idea how fucking, like, how fucking hard this is to, like, watch 2016 TJ? When I was fucking, like, I dipped a toe in the fucking alt-light kind of fucking brew. And now I gotta watch it in 2020 when the fucking politics of our culture have dramatically shifted to the fucking left in this fucking, direction, and trying to like, okay, what am I gonna say about this? I don't fucking see how that's pussy at all, but whatever. I know that I got right-wingers still in my audience who probably prefer this line of rhetoric, but it's fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I was stupid when I said this shit, and you're stupid for agreeing with it. I mean, I don't 100%. I'm probably still going to agree with some of what I say here, but this one, I feel like this is going to be bad.
High crime and poverty rate in the black community. I know, it displaces lower income residents. Well, let's see. What would I rather have? A slum filled with thugs who would probably shoot me as soon as look at me, or shops, cafes, restaurants, hotels, and apartments? What a tough fucking choice.
I mean, it's really, the problem with that is, one, there's not that level of fucking violence where, like, if you're walking through, like, a poor black neighborhood, you're going to get shot. And I knew that even at the time, because I'd done it before. There was, like, plenty of times when I'd walk through some pretty fucking ghetto-ass areas, and no one fucked with me. No one shot me. No one fucking was like, I'm going to shoot you as soon as look at you, or whatever the fuck, I was just, maybe I got a few weird glances like, do you know where you are? But that was it. No one fucking shot me. Obviously, I'm still alive. I don't have any bullet wounds. But at the same time, like, I don't know why I phrased it like it's a personal choice for me, because I'm not making a choice of like either this area I'm going to will be a ghetto or it's going to be some fucking yuppie place with fucking cafes and shit. I'm not the one being personally affected by that. It's not like I'm living in the fucking poor neighborhood and then some fucking, land developers show up, buy up all the land, put some yuppie bullshit there, and then I'm fucking like, I can't afford my rent anymore because it gets jacked up to fucking hell. So I'm not actually affected by it. I don't know why I framed it in such a way as like I'm the one being affected by this or something. So whatever.
Is being a former drug dealer a bad thing?
It's not.
But being a former slave owner, totally okay in white America.
see, it's not. Neither of the. It's not bad to be a former drug dealer. It is bad to be a former slave owner, and there's no former slave owners around. Like, I'm sorry. Like, what? Who? No one. No, I don't know any former slave owners.
I hate to answer a question with a question, but you know everybody who owned slaves in America is long fucking dead, right? There are no former slave owners wandering around in our midst.
Unless you're talking about like some BDSM shit. Maybe then.
Also, I'm white, and I don't give a fuck if you're a former drug dealer. I don't even give a fuck if you're a current drug dealer. In fact, if you're a current drug dealer, I'm happy to see you.
I agree with my answer there. I stand by that one.
Do you honestly think the structure of America is not based on racism?
I mean, not the whole structure. I think there's some racism in the structure, but I don't think it's like the entirety of like the structure of America is built around nothing but racism. If that's what you're getting at.
I do not think the structure of America is based on racism. If it were, there would be no black four-star generals, no black Secretary of States, no black president, no black Supreme Court justices, no major black entertainers, no black scientists. I think that it has been well and truly proven that black people are not limited from accomplishing any dream in America. There is no height to which black people cannot rise. The system is not built to keep them down. If it were, it's not doing a very good job. Does racism against blacks still exist in society? Of course it does. But our society is not based on racism.
I agree with some of that. I don't really like the argument I used of like, well, look at all the black entertainers in black, because that's not like a typical fucking result. See, at this point in my like career, I guess, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, I was making a lot of arguments that were based on like the fringe, like, because, you know, a black four-star general is the fringe. A black fucking like an entertainer like someone who's like a world-class, you know, renowned and known entertainer is the fringe. Not a bad fringe, but that's just like results not typical, right? So I think that a big part of the problem I had here was I was like defaulting to these like very visible anecdotal examples rather than looking at like what the totality of data had to say. But I still don't think that like all of society is based on racism. But do I think some racism is cooked into the fucking fabric of society? Sure. I don't think you can have a society that fucking has slavery as an institution for its, in its foundation. It's founded by slave owners. And then, you know, you have like civil rights problems. Like the fucking Civil Rights Act wasn't passed till like 1963, 64, something like that. There was segregation prior to that. I mean, like Jim Crow, redlining, that kind of stuff. Like you can't have all that stuff built into the system and then just expect like, well, but it's all gone now. Like every ounce of that is just totally gone, and any sort of lingering effects from that are totally gone. So that was totally naive on my part.
Do you really think you discovered America? Do you really think it's yours?
I don't think I discovered it, nor do I think it's mine. It actually belongs to the government. You know, the people with all the tanks and guns and soldiers and shit. I'm pretty sure they've got this fucker locked down.
I agree with that. Maybe a little glib, but yeah.
I'm upset. I'm an angry black man.
Or black woman.
But when you're upset, you're just upset. Aren't you an angry white man?
Well, I am, technically, yes.
Why isn't
I'm an angry white man.
racism illegal?
Well, you'd better thank your lucky stars it isn't, or all of you would be locked up. But to answer your question, racism is not illegal because the First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of speech.
I still agree with this. I don't necessarily agree that the people who made this video are racist. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't think I've seen any evidence that they are up till this point. But I don't think racism should be illegal. I still think it's constitutionally protected.
Even if I may not like what a racist has to say, I believe in his or her right to say it. Even if someone were calling for death to LGBT people or death to atheists, I would still defend their right to freedom of speech, even though I'm a bisexual atheist. Ideas should be allowed to compete in an open marketplace. No ideas should be censored. No point of view should be punished.
I agree with that, especially by the government.
Why is gaining the black vote so important, but mass incarceration against Black people isn't?
Why did black people overwhelmingly support Hillary Clinton, who doesn't give a shit about mass incarceration? Why did they snub Bernie Sanders, who actually wanted to address the problems with our private prison system? Why did your community fail to make their voices heard on this issue?
I mean, hey, it's when I'm right, I'm right. 2016, TJ is right on that. I don't make any apologies for that one.
Why are all of y'all afraid of black people? I don't want your purse. I just want the same pay rate.
We're probably afraid of black people because they're statistically more likely to commit crimes like theft. For instance, in 2011, 35,443 white people were arrested for robbery, whereas 45,827 black people were arrested for robbery. This is despite the fact that blacks make up only 12% of the population. Now, personally, I believe in treating people as individuals.
The statistic that I just read off is probably accurate, but the idea that there are white people out there who are like looking at that statistic and that's the reason that they have a fear of black people is pretty fucking silly. I don't think that the white people who are scared of black people are doing it because they've like read some, I used to love black people, but then I read some scary statistics and now, no, they were racist. They're just racist people who are just scared of black people because they're just fearful like that. They were maybe raised to be they're probably raised to be fearful like that. Consume media that led them to be fearful like that. The idea that it's based on stats is pretty silly. I don't think that anyone's, reading a statistic on black crime and saying to themselves, "Whoa, I guess I better be afraid now." You know what I mean? I don't think that's how it works.
What are you going to do about?
I didn't do the 1350 there. I did. If you guys want to watch the video I watched of myself last week, I did do 1350 there. So I did, and I addressed that. Now maybe I don't know. There's still a few minutes left. Maybe I'll do 1350 here. We'll see.
Systematic racism.
I have spoken out against the racist aspects of our criminal justice system, and I personally would not discriminate against black people. Beyond that, I have no intention of doing anything about it. First of all, I think the problem has been exaggerated. Second of all, it's not my problem in the first place. What are you going to do to end discrimination against atheists? Right, you ain't going to do shit because it's not your problem and you don't give a shit.
Why must
Let me hear it again. What was that in response to? Let's hear. What are you going to do
about systematic racism?
I have spoken out against the racist aspects of our criminal justice system, and
which I did. That's true.
I personally would not discriminate against black people.
Also true.
Beyond that, I have no intention of doing anything about it. First of all, I think the problem has been exaggerated.
Okay. And then I pivot to the whole, like, what would you do about discrimination against atheists thing? Well, honestly, that's kind of a weird argument because I would expect some help on that front, I guess. Like, if I was to say to somebody like, look, here's a piece of data that shows that atheists are discriminated against in this way, I would hope that person looking at that data wouldn't be like, well, what have you done to help my group? And not approach it on that selfish level. So I don't think I should have said it there.
Against atheists. Right, you ain't gonna do shit because it's not your problem and you don't give a shit.
Why must you own all the media outlets?
I don't own any media outlets.
I mean, could we at least have BET back?
This may come as a shock to you, but I actually don't own any media outlets.
I don't own any. Sorry,
One of the
I wish
few
I did.
white people that doesn't own a media outlet.
Why?
Yeah, that was a silly one. Yeah, I don't know why would you phrase it like that?
Why does every race qualify for reparations except black people?
The only group.
Huh? What other race gets reparations? I haven't got any. Have you guys got any reparations? I assume some of you guys are black watching, but like the white people here, have you guys Asians? I know Japanese people who were in internment camps did get reparations, but they were given, they were the generation that it actually happened to. So that was a very different sort of instance, I guess. Yeah, I don't remember ever getting any reparations. I don't remember that's one that really needs some explanation. I don't even know what the fuck that's referring to.
Group of people I can ever remember receiving reparations in American history were the Japanese. And the reparations were given to people who...
No, this isn't a media outlet. YouTube is a media... Someone in the chat asks, isn't this a media outlet? No, this is a YouTube channel. YouTube itself is a media outlet, but I don't own it. You know what I mean?
...would have actually been directly affected by the internment camps. There is no black person alive today who was ever a slave, so I'd have to ask you, reparations for what?
A long time ago. Really not.
So as far as that goes, I want to fucking say I still don't support reparations because I think it's a political non-starter. But as far as the reasons that, justify reparations, it's kind of like, if you're going to compare it to like a foot race or something, if you fucking have like, okay, all right, so you start off a slave or whatever, then after slavery comes to an end, you are, there's segregation, there's lynchings, there's redlining, there's all this other stuff that's done against you institutionally, and there's still stuff being done institutionally to this day. So it's not really like a fair race, if we're talking about like where the white community is and where the black community is. And I think that I see like a tendency here, like across the board, where there's a tendency on the part of 2016 TJ to apply things on a very individual level and to discount like the group level side of things. And I guess that tendency probably still exists within me to this day, and I probably should think about how that might still affect how I think about things.
That long ago, you guys prevented black people from learning how to read and write. But why did you let them keep the Bible?
Because...
See, like a question like that, I get what I get what he's fucking asking me. I get that he's saying like white people in general prevented black people from learning to read and write, but then, whatever. But like I have a very hard time not extrapolating it to me personally. Like, I didn't fucking do that. What the fuck? I never fucking did shit. I didn't fucking prevent you from learning to read or write, man. I wasn't part of that.
Because we were a bunch of Christian faggots back in the day. The real question is, why did we let them keep a book they couldn't read anyway?
I think that was what he was saying. Like, TJ, come on. That was the whole point of the question.
Funny thing, we don't prevent black people from learning to read anymore. And most still don't bother. At least a lot don't. For example, 47% of adults in Detroit, Michigan are functionally illiterate. The city is 82% black. White people didn't go around slapping books out of their hands. They just didn't give a fuck about reading.
White.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of statistical factors might lead into that, but I know the education in black communities is like woefully underfunded and shit. So I'm pretty sure that probably has something to do with it. Also, I can't really talk about not reading at this point because you might be impressed by this bookshelf I have behind me, but I don't think I've actually read a book in like 2 years. So,
People. Historically, you've never liked black people. But why have you always accepted black people's money?
I mean, let me just head you off at the pass. Why do you think? Because I like money. I've always liked money.
Dumb question. This is a capitalist country. We're all about money.
Yeah, I am. People who are on me for saying faggot, I am bisexual. Like, I've had a dick in my mouth, so it's okay. I can say it.
Most of us don't give a fuck if the motherfucker giving it to us is fucking purple.
What does colonization mean to you?
TJ is scared he's going to get called out. If I was scared I was going to get called out, why would I be drawing attention to this? Why would I be, like, specifically watching this video and responding to it? Like, wouldn't I be, like, quietly, like, privating all this shit? Like, uh-oh. The social climate has changed. Just going to very quietly move certain videos to unlisted, Like, wouldn't that be what I would be up to? I don't know. Actually, I missed what the last thing was saying because I was reading the chat.
didn't give a fuck about reading.
White people, historically, you've never liked black people. But why have you always accepted black people's money?
That's a dumb question. This is a capitalist country. We're all about money. Most of us don't give a fuck if the motherfucker giving it to us is fucking purple.
What does colonization mean?
I mean, I don't know, man. Some purple person came to me with money. I think I might turn him down. Like, I don't need your purple money, bro.
To you?
Colonization is an ongoing process by which a central system of power dominates the surrounding land and its components. The term is derived from the Latin word colere, which means to inhabit. That's the actual definition. What it means to me is beyond irrelevant.
You do
I kind of agree with that still.
know crack and cocaine are both drugs, right? Can you find out why Bill Clinton thinks one should carry a harsher sentence than the other?
Sure, I guess. I mean, why not? Next time I'm at one of Bill Clinton's secret Bohemian Grove sex parties, I'll be sure to ask him about that.
Now this one is for Flint.
By the way, so as an addendum to that, all drugs should be legalized. That's just where I'm at.
When are you gonna arrest Governor Snyder?
So when we talk about
I don't remember who Governor Snyder is.
slavery, why are you uncomfortable? It's part of American history.
I'm not the least bit uncomfortable. We can talk about slavery all you want.
Why do you want to adopt the fun part
Still agree.
of black culture, but not the true lifestyle of black Americans?
Wouldn't that be cultural appropriation if I did? Like, if I was like, I'm going to live the black lifestyle, like, wouldn't that would be like cultural appropriation, right? Am I wrong on that?
What exactly is the true lifestyle of black Americans?
Also a good point. I don't know if this is gonna, I don't know if I'm gonna go fucking off the walls from here, but that's actually pretty good.
Don't they all have different lifestyles? Surely
Yeah.
all black people don't lead identical lives. I adopt whatever I think is cool and I reject whatever I dislike and think is lame. That's the closest thing you'll get to an answer from me with such a meaningless, non-specific question.
I gotta know, why do you wear shorts in the wintertime?
Because I don't give a fuck.
Also, I don't. If anything, I wear like overly hot clothes in the summertime to hide my hideous body. So that's where I'm actually at on that. Do.
Sponsored by the Black Business School. Here's an idea, black people. If you want to succeed in business, go to a real business school, not this pile of shit. White people don't attend white business school. You know why? Because there's no such thing as white business and black business. There's just business. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace the fuck out. You enjoy my videos, subscribe to my...
Yeah. So yeah, that one was harder. The last one I did, I probably agreed with like 90% of what I said. This one, yeah, it was rougher. I probably agree with 50%. And then the other 50%, I'm just like, oops. But yeah, this idea that there should be some kind of like apology or something. Like, I'm not going to apologize for like shit I said before. I mean, I said it then because at the time I thought it was right. I didn't fucking say it out of some like, I wasn't like knowingly saying shit that I thought that I knew was wrong. Like, this is just bad stuff and I'm just going to put it out there anyway to make money. Ha 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 ha, or some shit like that. There was a few things that I looked at and I'm like, I thought to myself, like, I should have known better on that because of like personal experiences I'd had already up to that point or whatever. But, you know, there was no like deception on my part or anything. So I don't give a fuck. You know, I don't apologize for shit, but I do disavow some of it. Someone in the chat says, I wouldn't call that vid racist, just racially blind or ignorant. Yeah, I think that a lot of the problem actually genuinely does stem from me taking things that were meant to be applied on a group level to too much of an individualist level. And I think that a lot of the fucking flaws in my reasoning and a lot of the flaws in my argumentation kind of stem from that. Anywho, I think it's now actually time for us to go through Streamlabs and Super Chats. So let's do it. Streamlabs and Super Chats. Everything is where it's at. Okay. Where do we go? Donation history. Do. All right, we're going to read these first. Let's see where they start. 28th, yeah. Do. Okay, I think they start here. Okay. So this is from Moonbeam, who gave 666. I recall some years back, YouTuber Undomed did a video for your channel because you were on vacation or something. Do you know Undomed? If so, have you spoken to him lately? And do you ever watch any of his vids? I remember that Undomed has a pretty dope voice, and I remember having pretty pleasant conversations with him about some stuff. I think he's definitely more right-wing than I am. I don't really know much about what he's doing currently, but I don't have any ill will towards him or anything. COVID positive gave 666. Says, love you, TJ. Have some Corona. No thanks. Hunter S. Bunsen gave 333 and says, hearing you mispronounce names is both hilarious and oddly charming. Have you ever thought about, I guess I don't need to wear these headphones anymore. Have you ever thought about compiling a list of hard-to-pronounce names and words for a segment sometime? Failing that, go forth, minions, compile all previous outtakes, make it so. So apparently that guy is trying to demand that all you editors out there make a list, I guess, of words I don't say right, or compile some sort of video of all the words I fuck up and the names that I fuck up, which I hope you don't do. Moonbeam 666 says, TJ, have you ever played Dark Souls games or maybe Bloodborne? Just curious. Also, take a little more of my money. Now, I don't really play video games very often. The last time I played a video game to any sort of completion, I think, was Fallout New Vegas, right around the time that it came out. And I don't know how long that's been. But yeah, I'm not really much of a gamer at all. Transsexual Jesus gave 666. Says, TJ, have you seen the articles about the record 100-degree temp recorded in the Arctic Circle? How do you deal with the anxiety that comes from knowing our species will likely be killed by climate change? I don't think we'll be killed. I think that the planet in general is going to be a much shittier place where it's going to be much harder for human beings to survive. And I think that there's probably going to be some massive social unrest that comes from people migrating out of climates that are no longer viable or habitable for human beings. I think there's going to be a lot of people who starve. I think there's going to be massive social unrest, perhaps even a third world war. I have a lot of dire predictions that center around climate change, but I don't really think that extinction of the human species is one of them. Andrew Walker gave 420 and says, will you ever discuss the behind-the-scenes drama that led to the end of DP? I think it's kind of silly to imagine that there's just imagine out of nowhere with no evidence that there was behind-the-scenes drama. I mean, the explanation that I've given, and I stand by 100%, is that there was fucking creative differences. Now, I know that, every time that you read about like a band or something breaking up and they say, well, there was creative differences, I know that people think like, oh, well, that's just, the lie they're telling to, hide the true reason for the breakup or whatever. But like, really, at the end of the day, there was a vision for the show that was consistently pushed by one person that the other three people on the show consistently thought was not the right vision, and they wanted to do something different. And so those three people went and started their own fucking show. And that's about it. There's not some kind of like crazy story behind it all. Divergence gave $30 and says, I feel like drawing a juxtaposition between, oh, by the way, thank you for the very generous donation, between the Hollywood producers. I'm sorry. Let me start over. I feel like drawing a juxtaposition between decisions that Hollywood producers make and huge sweeping policy decisions is a weird way of framing things. How does energy spent changing voice actors affect our energy in getting our policy agenda in place? It doesn't. What I was referring to is the people on Twitter, really, more than anything. Now, I know that Twitter is not everything. Twitter is not the world. Twitter is not the discourse. But I think it takes kind of an interesting temperature of a certain, segment of the population. And, when I go on Twitter and I see that conversation about systemic racism and, systemic police abuse and all of these lofty topics has pretty much ceased in favor of cheerleading, voice actors being replaced on Family Guy or whatever. I think that's fucking a waste of fucking time and energy. Cunty Cat gave $15 and says, where does censorship of the artist take place and overall harmless change divide from one another? You mentioned that they are no longer showing an Office episode. Not that The Office matters. I just prefer everything be allowed, especially in comedy. I tend to agree with that. I don't think that we need to censor art on the basis of sensibilities. And I think that if you do something artistically in one context and then, the context of society changes and what you did before might be perceived differently, then probably the best way to go about that is to append a disclaimer onto it and explain exactly that fact. Not to disavow what was created, because clearly, it was acceptable at the time. You got away with it at the time. There was no backlash at the time. And even if there was backlash, that's not a sufficient reason to censor something. Do you think there was a historical Jesus Christ? This is from Evan W68, who gave $6.66. He says, the question popped in my head the other day, and I was curious your thoughts on it. Okay, so I'm going to defer, I guess, to what Christopher Hitchens said about this. Christopher Hitchens was talking about the evidence for the historicity of Jesus Christ, and his contention was basically, okay, so if Jesus was just a whole cloth fictional character, then you would expect him to just be born in Bethlehem. Instead, he was born in Bethlehem, but you would expect him to just be a character that was written as being born and raised in Bethlehem. You wouldn't expect there to be this contrivance about a census that even though he was from Nazareth, he had to travel to Bethlehem to be born because his father had to go take some weird census or something like that. You wouldn't expect that bizarre plot contrivance unless you were trying to account for, hey, this guy was born in Nazareth, but the prophecies all say the Savior will be born in Bethlehem. So, it's like they're trying to make the prophecy fit somebody that already existed, at that point. They probably would not have made Jesus a criminal if they were writing the story, because it was, it was something that would be looked down upon in those times, I guess. I guess we still kind of look down on criminals. And there's some other stuff like that where it's just like there's certain contrivances of the story of Jesus that seem like they would only be the way they are if you were writing the story to try to make a narrative fit an existing person. So that's probably the best evidence for the historicity of Jesus, in my opinion. Cunty Cat gave $5 and says, okay, it's kind of an odd argument that certain people make that we should vote for Biden, yet hate Cigar, who I feel pretty comfortable in calling further and more necessarily left than Biden on the issues that matter the most. Now, I don't personally have much knowledge of Cigar and Jetty or what his beliefs are, and I think that getting too bogged down in Rising and what Crystal and Cigar do on their show is probably, does a disservice to the broader topic at hand because, there's always going to be a lot more nuance involved with specific people. I think it's more, it's more useful to kind of talk about the ideas in a broader sense. I can't remember who said it, but it does strike me that certain people on the left have become Christian conservative types that say, don't talk to them hippies with their dangerous and infectious ideas. That's from Cunty Cat with $7. I don't really know what he's talking about there. It might have had something to do with whatever I was talking about at the time. I guess that's the peril of reading these at the end. Keyblaze gave $6.69. Says, why don't you have a seat over there? Who were you coming to visit today? Oh, I was coming to visit your mom. Goose Juice gave $10 and says, TJ, you're one handsome man. Thanks, Goose Juice. Joan of Arc gave $6.66, says, should pale death with treble dread make the ocean caves our bed. God who hears the surges roll, deign to save our suppliant soul. Okay. Howdy. N.I. says, gave $7.41 and says, how united should the states be in the USA? I'd appreciate to have an answer from both TJ and a generic impression from some random libertarian that only redneck TJ could make. How much rights should states have? Now, I think that, when we go to the states' rights thing, it's been used to justify some pretty nasty shit in the past, like George Wallace kind of stuff. But at the same time, I do, it's obviously been instrumental in, getting gay marriage passed because it happened in individual states before it happened nationwide. Obviously, there's certain states right now that allow recreational marijuana use, and that leads to a higher probability that it will one day be federally legal. So I do think that you do have to have some autonomy on the part of the states, and I don't think that, that should be gotten rid of. But as far as the redneck libertarian perspective, I would have to say, man, just keep the federal government out of our business, man. Fuck them. They don't know what's best. Us here in Texas, we know what we doing. We don't need no dang old federal government coming into Texas telling us what for. We know Texas for Texans, boy. Texas for goddamn Texans. Mega Gamer, $2. Read my dono. All right, I read it. Cunty Cat, again, $6.66. Cunty Cat's always very generous. It's always been the left who's had the convincing arguments, deprogrammed Nazis, enacted positive, progressive change towards freer society for hundreds of years. It's practically human nature to want to be polyamorous, transhuman slut beast. Freedom. Okay. Good for you. CJS 1916 gave $6.66. Says Kyle needs to stop hiding from Vosh. Whether or not he wants to debate, he should at least talk to Vosh. A big problem with Kyle's take on this is that the right-wing populists don't really support pro-worker legislation, but they do pass bigoted laws. Fair enough. Darth Blazer gave $6.66. Says stop listening to Vosh and giving him attention. All of his ideas are cringe and super unoriginal and just parrots Occupy, era, Antifa, and ANCOM points. Kyle is right about him. So two very different comments right in a row, but hey, both get a say here. Nah gave $6.66. Says Crystal does not say Tucker is a real populist. She very specifically called him out for his bullshit. Okay, fair enough. I guess there's a video here. Let's take a look. So maybe I'm wrong on that one. So this is a video, I guess, of Crystal.
All right, Crystal, what's on your radar?
Well, Tucker Carlson has sparked new
This is Crystal talking about Tucker. Let's take a look.
outrage with the monologue delivered on his show Monday night. Starts out with a typical Fox News tirade about protesters, or mobs as he calls them, tearing down statues. Now, personally, when I see the fixation among Democrats on statues rather than healthcare, unions, a living wage, and jobs, I despair that the neoliberal-dominated Democratic Party will never move beyond symbols of justice to actual justice. But Tucker, he sees it quite a bit differently. The real menace isn't impotence, gridlock.
I don't know why you can't do both, by the way, but whatever.
and virtue signaling. No, this looming statue menace, he informs his viewers, is about so much more.
Teddy Roosevelt was a hero to millions of Americans. He still is. That's precisely why they're tearing down his statue. They know.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Is she at any point in this going to specifically say he's not a populist? Because I never said, like, she won't criticize Tucker Carlson or anything. That was never, like, a criteria of this. Let's get to the part where her and Cigar are embattled here at the end, I'm sure. Because he, I know, is a Tucker Carlson fanboy who retweets Tucker often.
I'm not buying. And sorry, I don't watch cable news that much. And I don't buy into this whole, we've talked about this on the show, like, oh, you're out beyond the pale and you shouldn't engage with the argument, whatever. But when I watched this monologue, it kind of popped up on my feed. I was really struck by the parallels between what he is doing for the MAGA right versus what Rachel Maddow did for, like, the resistance left. It all roads lead to, like, this is existential, your fellow American is somehow terrifying, and the only thing you can do, no matter what, is vote for your team.
Well, I think the only difference, though, is that Trump was not a Russian asset, was actually quite incompetent at doing much of what he wants to do, and that the left and the Democrats...
Yeah, I don't see any evidence here. Like, the only thing that would undercut the argument I made earlier is if she were to say Tucker Carlson is not a populist. Or is not a real populist. I don't see her specifically calling him that in this. I see her making a specific criticism about a story he did, which that's fine. She can do that. And I probably agree with much of her criticism, but I don't have time to fucking go through and figure out if you have like a clip or anything of her saying like Tucker Carlson is not a fucking populist, he ain't part of this shit, then okay, cool. Then we can fucking argue. Or then I'll fucking retract it. But until then, I can't retract it on the basis of this. Anyway, back to questions. Ben Riley gave 666, says, I think it's because the right is generally better at using marketing tactics to their advantage to sway people and advertise. I think it's a lesser of two evils argument, a devil's bargain where class is the greater evil, populism is fan service. Let me see. I don't know about that. I mean, I consider myself pretty populist, but I don't know. I don't have to digest that one, I guess. Nah, again, with 666 says, yes, right-wing populists did not switch to Bernie. They live in a bubble where they only hear a caricature of the left. As Kyle said, rising is a way to burst the bubble and slowly expose them to a positive image of the left. It takes trust and time. I mean, I can appreciate that perspective, and I even said in my diatribe that I don't necessarily disagree with that particular point. My contention is that I don't know if there's many ways that we can actually work together with like populist left and populist right. I don't know how much common ground there actually is. Now, I'm not disregarding that there's some, but I don't know how much there is, and I don't know how much we can meaningfully work together on it. But the idea that maybe, this show, if you're going to say that it's a leftist pop, that's sharing equal time with a right winger, you also have to say, well, it's a right winger sharing equal time with a leftist. So I think it kind of cancels each other out on that one. I do agree with Kyle's point there, and yours as well. Tits McButts gave 667, says, I apologize, and I am so sorry for what I have said in my previous videos. Okay. CJS1916 gave 666, says, the whole anti-SJW thing has become an excuse for some leftists to vote for legitimate racists like Trump, rather than at least getting less racist, homophobic capitalism. The way we overcome racism and bigotry is by trying to address them, not ignore them. Okay. Cases Snake Venom Cook gave 666, says TJ will never leave. He's not a little bitch. Yeah. You're going to have to kill me. Hunter S. Bunsen gave 333, says sometimes can't believe I'm in a time that gets to see the start of a psychedelic renaissance. Is it misguided of me to place immense hope in what us used to be a hippie daydream? I feel as if our species has taken a bit of an identity crisis / without psyches. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man, but thanks for the money. I don't really know how to address that. Okay, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. I'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. I really have to piss, and I've had to for the last, 30 minutes. And I was going to try to just get through the rest of this without having to do it, but that's not going to happen. So please stand by. Sorry about that. The second, I'm going to get a piss bucket that I'm going to put under my desk. So when I need to piss, I'll just piss in that, And that's going to solve a lot of problems. But back to the bullshit. All right. Johnny Zoo gave $3 and says, as a fan during your drama with AIU about racial profiling, it was weird seeing you ignore the points you made towards him in your later videos. Your recent shift feels like a return to form. Thank you. Robert Leslie gave $5 and says, hey, TJ, do you still watch AIU Devin Tracy? If so, do you still think he's a racist? I'm not touching that. I don't watch his shit, so I don't really know. I would imagine that if I said he was in the past, I don't know. Has he changed? Is he different? I don't know. Ben PC Shit Piro gave $5 and says, shout out from and to the members of the Grifters Guild. Stephen Coward, Dave. Okay, basically just all the people we don't like. Gotcha. Many of our falsons are now sort of, I don't know. He just yammers. That's all right. He, basically doesn't like right wingers. Dave Rubin and Tim Pool and all this stuff. Dim Tool, he calls him. Far Gone. And okay, yeah, he's come up with clever little names and shit. Ben Riley gave $6.66, says, what happened on the right happened on the left. People were pushed to the point of desperation and voted for a candidate they didn't fully understand. That's how it starts. The fever, the rage, the feelings of powerlessness that makes voters elect fools. I think that you have to, I've got to assume more. I don't know that voters are just like this mindless, oh, we fear, now we vote bad. I hope that there's a more complicated explanation than that. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. Yo Mama, very generous $50 donation. Been watching you since 2007. Haven't watched any YouTuber that long. Don't always agree with your takes, but love your content. Left is best. Thank you. Cunty Cat, once again, $11. A quote from Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. The book I think you and your audience might enjoy. Even a non-believer might find it useful to model himself after God. Love y'all, racist, Antifa, Nazi snowflakes. Awesome. Yep. And now we're going to look at the Super Chats, which there's going to be way more of those, I'm sure. I'm going to try to, I usually just read them from the top, but that's kind of a pain in the ass. So I'm going to try to read them from the bottom up this time so that they're kind of more in order of how I received them. Okay. So here we go. Thought I would miss the stream since my power was out, but it's back on. So have my money, Cheege. All is well. Thank you. Give me a brief description of Lord Gimli. I want to draw him for you. Also, where is the best place I can send the depictions? DFF patron. That's from Jennifer Rose for $4.99. And I wanted to say, I don't want to do a description of Lord Gimli. I want that to be open to interpretation, but you're still free to draw him, and that can be sent to my Twitter inbox. Super Mario gave $6.66 in Canadian funny money and said, long-time sub, keep up the fantastic work. Just curious, have you considered replaying Fallout 4? Any quick thoughts about the game? I do not like Fallout 4. It was way too grindy and fetch questy for me. Pong Master Fong gave $5, says, what is your best fact-check information or post you've seen on Facebook? I don't really go on Facebook. Definitely Human gave $5 and says, I like setting a new standard for voice acting, but let's not reopen and cancel everything that existed before this moment. I also just worry that, like, what about all the black or, like, people of color fucking voice actors who want to audition for white characters? Like, I don't think that there should be a standard that says you can only fucking someone of the race of a character can play that character. It just doesn't strike me as making any sense. Ost Bacon gave $5 and says, hey, TJ, I want to apologize for assuming Galen has Asperger's disorder last week. I could have sworn in an old episode of DP he said he had it. Nope. Rafael Cabrera gave $5 and says, love you, TJ. Have my minimum wage scraps. Thank you. You know, if you're at the point where you're only making scraps, maybe don't give me any, but you know. The very comedic trash bag TM gave $4.99 and says, as a former Shane Dawson fan, you couldn't be more correct. I think mocking Trayvon Martin in a game was the last straw for me. Estev08 gave $1.99 and says, what's your current opinion of Sargon of Akkad? I don't have one because I don't really watch his videos. John Holder gave $4.99 and says, I'm rereading the Lucifer Principle. I strongly recommend it to anyone who hasn't read it. You should do another video with Howard. We've been trying to get that to happen. It's been really hard for us to find mutually useful times in our schedules. Spinosaurus Egyptiacus gave $10. It says, hey, would TJ... do you think you would ever do a DFF on Coyote Peterson? You talked about him. I talked a bit about him on the episode on wasps you did, but didn't go further in depth about him. I think it'd be interesting. Now, he doesn't personally interest me very much, but maybe one of the other guys will do it. I don't know. Monol Phantom gave £10 or euros. I can never tell the fucking difference there. I'm retarded when it comes to that. Nope, the voice actor thing is a distraction and a pacifier. We just want to be able to walk down the street without feeling endangered by those sworn to protect us. Yeah, no shit. Michael Allen, CPA, gave $5.05. It says, if you recall, I was the guy running for DNC delegate in CA29. I won. Symbolic victory is not enough. Defund police, defund military, Medicare for all. Awesome. Spinosaurus Egyptiacus, again, with $10. Very generous. Thank you very much. Also, I know this would never happen in a million years, but how do you think the media would react if a third-party candidate like Howie Hawkins or Joe Jorgensen won the general election? I think they would react the same way everyone else in this country would react, with total astonished shock. Alif Muhammad gave $2 and says, BLM 2020. Thank you for telling it like it is. Narubs 585 gave $3 and says, thoughts on black people getting reparations? I already addressed that. I personally don't think it's a terrible idea, but I think that it's a political non-starter and therefore probably not something that should be central to anyone's agenda. Hella Cool Guy gave $2 and says, I bet I can't get you to read this. Haha, nerds read. Big Daddy Sizzleify gave $5 and says, the six. Okay, it's a tongue twister. I'm not doing it. Brianatus gave $6.99 and says, populism is the new idiocracy. If one line from 1984 could describe Trump's base, it is ignorance is strength. I don't think populism is idiocracy. I don't see why appealing to the common man should necessarily be a negative thing. I think that there are ways that you can appeal to the common man that are, regressive and fucked up, but I don't think that in and of itself it's a negative thing. Optimistic Nihilist gave $3. Didn't say shit. K Funk gave $2. Says, you beautiful grifter, you. Thank you. Big Daddy Sizzlefy again with $5 says, don't tell me what to do or when to super chat. Crap. Joshua Jung gave $2 and says, solidarity for all, not for some. Sergio Ribeiro gave $2 and says, thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. Okay. So I don't like Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. I think that they're pretty dumb. I think that the choice he made in the first film to demystify Michael Myers is just one of the worst possible decisions that you could have made for how to approach that material. I think that the choice to make Michael Myers a 10-foot tall, muscle-bound fucking professional wrestler type is pretty silly. And I think that his over-the-top, in-your-face directing style, while it worked for something like The Devil's Rejects, is totally wrong for the Halloween franchise that was way more about atmosphere and, you know, subtle scares. Let's see, where'd I leave off here? Okay. CJ O'Toniel gave $20 and says, I agree that Crystal is accommodating to Sagar's sometimes fascist, socially conservative views. He believes America is largely socially conservative. Look at the polls, and that is just not true. America is largely socially lib. I don't know about that. I'd have to look at those polls. Nike Man gave $5 and says, Alex Jones is a populist. All this means is he rants against the elites. I want deeper understanding rather than just shouting establishment bad like Door. Yeah, I think that's a fair enough point. Jaron Talata gave $5 and says, love this, more of this kind of content, maybe, whatever makes you happy, of course. Brian B gave $10 and says, police, defund or abolish. I feel more or less policing doesn't address societal issues that generate crime. Centrists won't go for it, hence Trump too. Is the left pushing abolish too hard? So I believe I'm a supporter of defund the police. To me, and I know that there's different interpretations out there, but to me, defund the police means defund, you know, I mean, like, limit the police to instances where their presence is actually justified. Like, there has been a rape, there has been a murder, but for like, you know, there's a wellness check or someone is asleep in the fucking drive-thru of a fucking Wendy's or something, I don't think the cops need to be called for that. Scariatric gave $6.66, says, thanks for providing me hundreds of hours of entertainment throughout the years. Talk to Vosh more. Love you, TJ. Heart. Thank you. Joshua Jung again with $5 says, I grow as you do, TJ, and we can either move forward or stall out. Keep moving on. Thank you. Virtuoso gave $2 and says, mass incarceration is pretty much slavery. I agree. And I've done videos about how fucked up the prison industrial complex is for like 10 years now. So I've always been pretty woke on that one. Your mom gave $5 and says, the whole poor blacks choose to be illiterate is still effed up. Yeah, I know. What do you want? I can't go back and make it not fucked up. Peyote Erotic gave $20 and says, my girlfriend watches your streams during work and loves them. She just got me your book. Love you, Dorky D. Thank you. Appreciate that. PJ Stahl gave €10 and said, have a nice day. All right. Humboldt Hipneck gave $5 and says, I'm impressed by your growth over the last few years. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Sergio Ribeiro gave $10, says, I find Jimmy Dore's worship of Crystal Ball to be cringe because she took over $60K from a super PAC, yet he smears AOC for enabling the corrupt system. I'm starting to lose respect for him, honestly. Yeah, maybe that is a little bit too much. I don't know. I haven't heard this stuff about the Crystal Ball taking money from the super PAC. I mean, I have heard about it, but I don't know how true it is, and I don't know what the circumstances might be or whatever the hell else. But I like a lot of Jimmy Dore's takes, but I don't know. He's not someone I've done a deep dive into either. I've definitely seen more of Jimmy Dore than I have of Crystal Ball. But I didn't know that that he simped for her or whatever the fuck terminology you want to use. Explicit Ghost gave $10, says, amazing atheist. None of what you said in 2016 video was radically wrong, racist, cringe, or apology worthy. Don't succumb to the modern regressive ideology that people like Vosh peddles. I don't know what you're talking about. So As far as it being, I specifically went over what was radically wrong. I agree that none of it was racist per se. I guess everyone has different standards of what exactly is racist. It was definitely some stuff that was racially, I don't want to say insensitive, but just like cringy from the perspective of this is not accurate. This is not a fucking productive way of looking at this. And as for apology worthy, I specifically said I'm not going to apologize. And I'm not going to apologize because I said what I fucking said. I didn't say it in with any malicious intent. It was what I honestly believed at the fucking time. Don't succumb to the modern regressive ideology. People like Vosh pedals. I don't feel like I'm not responding to ideology here. I'm responding to fucking facts. I'm responding to what fucking statistical data avails me of, rather than looking at individual fringe cases like, well, how can we be racist if black president? Which is a pretty fucking stupid line of logic. But thanks for the $10. Jake Dyer gave $4.99 and says, in case I didn't tell you about Under the Silver Lake last week, it's a weird movie on Amazon Prime. You'll love it. Red Letter Media recommends it. Okay, I'll probably not check it out, but I specifically even like last time I wrote down the stuff people told me to check out, and I still haven't done it. I don't even know where the fuck that is. Jake Mater gave $5 and says, what kind of high tech would be part of your cyberpunk identity? Where would you be in this low society, high tech, dark world? P.S. When's the next meetup? I don't know when the next meetup is because COVID-19 has kind of fucked that. I think we probably would have already had one if not for that. But as far as I don't know, are you talking about like specifically like Cyberpunk, like that game that's coming out? Because I don't know shit about that other than it's coming out and it's a game. As far as just like some general Cyberpunk shit, I definitely want like some kind of like specialty fucking crazy dick. Ian Jones gave $10 in Canadian funny money and said, how about a left-winger and a right-winger who both agree with each other because they're both on the libertarian side? Does that sound like a good idea for a talk show host? I don't know. I'd have to see. If you had the right personalities, maybe. Jada Kid 718 gave $2 and says, thoughts on the Dr. Disrespect Twitch ban? I don't know who that is. Sorry. Let's see here. I got a few more have come in here. Hunter Bunsen gave $1.11 and says, don't you hate it when character limits force you to use weird grammar and or syntax? I guess. Maybe just come up with something different. All right. So I have a few more super chats come in since I started reading them. Look at those. So, from Nick Ross, $4.99, the amazing atheist has turned me away from atheism, making me see T.J. Kirk as the one true God. Yeah, that happens a lot. Henry's Vlogs gave $19.99 and says, polls show that Biden is leading, so in your opinion, do you think there's a really good chance he might become president? Also, are there any political figures that are liberal enough to want to legalize all drugs? I don't know of anyone in mainstream American politics at this time who wants to legalize all drugs the way that I do. But I advocate for that's something I need to do a stream that's like just entirely about that at some point in the near future. That's definitely something that needs to happen, or at least like a major chunk being dedicated entirely to the premise that we need to legalize all drugs, and address all of the counter arguments that might exist against, that fucking thesis and stuff. As for the Biden thing, I wouldn't, if you're a Biden fan or you're just a Trump hater, I wouldn't count my chickens before they've hatched on that one, because Biden still has to face Trump in the arena of debate. And I don't know how that goes. I kind of have a suspicion that it's not going to go well for Biden. So that might push the needle back to the right. So we'll see. But right now, obviously, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the amount of like social unrest and COVID-19 and all this other stuff that's going on in the States. So obviously, Trump is not at the height of his popularity at the moment, but who knows? Maybe he can talk his way out of it in the debates. Humboldt Hypnic gave $5 and says, have you read Dune? If not, I would recommend it. Frank Herbert was into psychedelics and his books are really interesting. I have read the original Dune, but it's been a very long time. And I need to fucking, I mentioned earlier how I haven't read anything. in a long, long time. But when I say that, I should clarify that I do listen to audiobooks. But that's not really the same thing as actually sitting down and reading. So maybe Dune will be the one that gets me back into actually sitting down, opening up a fucking paper book and reading through it. I just seem to not have the patience to properly do that anymore. Thought Criminal gave $5 and says, TJ, have you read Industrial Society and Its Future? I mean, as I mentioned, this is Ted Kaczynski? Yeah, I haven't read it. I'm sorry. I know that supposedly it's very convincing. Jehoshaphat Davey gave $5 and says, here's some Louisiana escape money. Thank you. Matthew Booth gave $2 and says, you're my freaking hero, man. A weird person to choose as a hero, but thanks. You also gave $1. Daniel White gave $20, very generous, and says, what would be your biggest critique of left media? Love you, man. My biggest critique of left media is that it doesn't do enough to make itself pervasive. I did a stream or two about, I need to start like cutting up some of my streams and putting up like individual segments the way that like Vosh does on his channel. But I've definitely done a few things where I've talked about stuff that the independent left-wing media on YouTube needs to do. As far as the mainstream left media, there's no such thing. And I think that's it. I think we're caught up. Maybe there might be a few more that have come in since then. Maybe like one or two. Hunter S. Bunsen just said boobies. Nope. Mostly butts. Sorry. Paco the Taco 15 gave $2. Says, I don't wipe after pooping. Good for you. CJS 1916 gave $5 and says, people like to call Vosh a snowflake, but I never hear them debunk his arguments. Just tell us not to listen to his scary ideas. Booga booga. Yeah, that does seem to be a common thread, doesn't it? Ariel Castillo gave $4.99, says, I support BLM fully. I just hate how annoying people get with playing the victim and calling everything racism and cancel culture. Thoughts? I definitely feel where you're coming from on that. Maybe it's just the vestiges of the anti-SJW me. And I still consider myself an anti-SJW, although I don't openly identify as it because people will get the wrong impression, but... maybe it's the vestiges of that, but it still rubs me the wrong fucking way. Anyway, that's where we're at. And I want to thank you guys for checking out the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope that it was fun for all. And if it wasn't, I'm sorry. I hope that you heard some interesting thoughts, some interesting ideas, and I hope that all of you stay safe, stay sane, and continue to engage in the political fucking dialectic of America. And I look forward to reading your comments when this goes up as a video. Thank you guys, and as always, peace the fuck out.